Shwmai croeso, hello and welcome to the Bluebirds Nest, Neath ar Adael Gleision. Episode 11, as always, is sponsored by DragonBet. Please take a look at dragonbet.co.uk for all your latest betting markets, particularly those in the JD Cymru leagues. Now, this week, we are heading back up the M4 once again, going across the bridge and all the way to East London. Privileged to welcome another two guests onto the Nest this week for what I'm sure will be an insightful and inspiring conversation about one of our club partners, the JE3 Foundation. Firstly, then, introductions. It's great to welcome Charlie Edinburgh, CEO of the JE3 Foundation, and Julian Furne, who's a lifelong Leyton Orient fan, but also the Vice Chairman of Haverfordwest County. Gents, a warm Welsh welcome to you both.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good evening.
We've got a very broad age range of followers watching the Bluebirds Nest. So I think just for context to begin with, I want to give a bit of a history lesson and also to pay homage to your dad, Charlie, as both obviously player and management career. So Justin Edinburgh, for those of you who are unaware, obviously spent a good time watching YouTube this weekend before filming this week. And I went down a couple of rabbit holes, I must admit. Almost 300 Premier League appearances for Spurs. Obviously an FA Cup and League Cup winners medal, 91 and 99. I think the 91 FA Cup final is probably my own first memories. Obviously Gaza's tackle and Spurs coming out 2-1 winners against Forest. It was interesting to see a young Roy Keane in the Forest ranks. Then obviously upon finishing his playing career, it was coaching side of things. I've got to try and get this right in order. Northampton, Gillingham, down the road to us in Newport County, and then at both Julian and our chairman, Rob Edwards' beloved Leyton Orient. And I suppose going back to early summer 2019, we just won the National League, obviously gaining Leyton Orient back into the Football League, into League Two, also reaching the FA Trophy final at Wembley. I suppose as a club, you as a family, you all must have been, on cloud nine with it all when obviously disaster struck, when your dad at just 49 years old suffered a fatal cardiac arrest. And now I'm aware many of listeners and followers of Haverfordwest County would remember your dad's sad passing. Perhaps not many of the details around how that came about, where he was at the time, and I suppose how this has instigated the JE3 Foundation, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for all that Dad gave to the game and for how loved we felt and knew he was as a family to us as family and close friends. We started off this charity very, very soon after his tragic passing, and to go back to your question, he was training in a gym, a local gym to where we live here in Chelmsford in Essex at the time. He'd actually just got back the day before from watching his beloved Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League final against Liverpool, which, when you look back at sort of significance, and we always say he went out on the absolute high of all highs, as you mentioned there, getting Orient promoted back into the Football League. His last game, as it so happens that he ends up managing, albeit in a defeat, was at Wembley. And then you got to go and see Tottenham in a Champions League final. And then, 2 days later, he's training in a gym and he suffered his cardiac arrest. And, he never came back round. It was a real painful sort of waiting period over sort of 4 or 5 days. I mean, for us as a family, we got a sort of bit of an insight and inkling maybe sort of midway through the week that the outcome wasn't looking too great. But, Julian, other Orient fans and other football fans and football people were probably just waiting to hear what the outcome was going to be. And look, it was a tragic one. And, for us as a family, we still grieve him every day. And there's not a day that goes by where we're not speaking about him or bringing up a memory or a joke or something that, brings us back to him. And for me, I think, a real important factor for me in the early parts was having something to focus on in that sort of grieving process. And I remember just being in hospital with him, and when we did get the tragic news, I said to myself, "You're too good of a man," and in my eyes, regardless of what other people thought, to be forgotten about. And we could really do some good with, the platform, which is football, which he was fortunate enough to play and manage in. It's such a powerful platform, football. It does get some really bad and negative press at times, but from us as a family, the way that the Footballing World Club together and has supported it from day one, it's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's and going through that, to think that he was obviously in a gym in a public place and wasn't, we'll come on to it, I'm sure, about having that defib, having access to that is sad and drastic to hear. That comes on to it then. So the three element of the JE3 Foundation, I'm assuming it represents your three key areas of the foundation.
It does. And you know what? I got asked this question quite a lot since we've started it. And in the first part, I just said, right, his football shirt number was 3. And then as it's grown and grown, the 3 key areas, as we mentioned, the access to defibrillators, the education and training in CPI and how to use defibrillators, and then obviously campaigning for a law change, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But yeah, it was his shirt number throughout football. It happens to be a lucky number in our family. I'm born on the 3rd of December. But also, I think where we got the 3 from, he's left my mum, myself, and my sister behind, and we're sort of the 3 that are steering the ship with the charity, along with our fantastic trustees. So it just had a nice, catchy feel to it, and we just went with it. And as you say, it all sort of comes together and makes JE3 what we are today.
Yeah, that's excellent. It is a nice sort of family association with the number 3. Let's go to the first one then. So access to defibrillation, the first key area. What sort of work is ongoing with that?
We've done plenty of work to date. I think for us, obviously, Dad passed away in the June of 2019. We used his birthday, which is in December, the 18th of December, to host our JE3 Gala charity ball, which was sort of the launch event of the foundation, really, where we was able to generate some really good funds to propel us forward and start to really make a difference, on top of all of the amazing generosity of football fans, family that had donated to help get us up and running in the first place. But access to defibrillators as a charity, a big part of what we do is we aim to donate a minimum of 3. Again, sticking with the number 3. Everything that we do with this charity has got my dad's presence felt throughout it. And we aim as a minimum per quarter of the year to donate 3 defibrillators to venues up and down the country that perhaps can't afford one, would like one, where we really see as a collective group, as a board, that these donations are going to really make a difference to the community, to people. Because, for me and my family, and I'm sure many listeners, I was quite naive to what a cardiac arrest actually was before what happened to my dad. And it's not often until something happens to you that you actually sort of stand up, take notice, and really sort of dissect what it is and how it occurs. And as I say, a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, I had absolutely no idea what the difference was. I used to drive down my local high street, and there's been a defibrillator on the wall there for years, but I just used to see that yellow box on the wall, and I'd be like, what's that? No interest. And unfortunately, it's nobody's fault, but it's just a real naivety in this country and outside of this country. There's not really enough work done around it. So getting the defibrillators out there and access to them, it helps obviously with that sort of message and making people aware as well. And obviously we'll come on to the second point in a minute. We don't donate defibrillators without making sure that people are trained and know how to use them. Because as I say, my dad was in a place, of all places that you think there would be one, in a gym, exerting himself, training, pushing himself, because as we all know, people go to the gym often or not to better their physical and make sure that they're you know, getting in better shape. And to know that people are going into a gym. I used to go to the gym. I don't anymore. I'd rather go out for a road run or out on my bike or play football to keep fit. But going into a gym and not knowing if there's that piece of equipment there, hopefully it never needs to be used, but it's so important that as many of these pieces of equipment are out there, and that's where JE3 sort of is there to help with the rollout and access to defibrillators.
Yeah, you obviously mentioned the first two then, so access and the education element to it, and it's Justin's law, your third key area, which I found fascinating upon sort of doing some research and speaking to Julian, etc. So tell us where you are with that then, please.
Yeah, so obviously we mentioned there that Dad was in a gym at the time when he suffered his cardiac arrest, and it just really sort of hit home to me that when I researched and I found out it isn't a legal requirement for health and sports facilities in the UK to actually house a defibrillator. Well, you think about a seatbelt in your car. I know they didn't need to used to be worn, but now it's a legal requirement. Hopefully never needs to be used. You're never in an accident, but it's there as a prevention tool to help the worst possible outcome. So with a defibrillator, doesn't matter what your sport is. It could be tennis, golf, rowing, you know, whatever your sport. We want, with Justin's law and the JE3 Foundation, what we're striving to do is make sure that every sports club, health and sports facility in the country is equipped with a defibrillator by law, so that if something does happen, which these incidents are happening on a daily occurrence, not just within sport. Let's make that clear. It's happening on local high streets, in schools, but we really feel, again, with Dad being the centre sort of driving force of this charity and his link to football and sport, we felt that this was a really, really good place for us to start to make a difference. And, you know, if we can get that law passed, where then could that potentially lead us to help with other areas? I've obviously been doing this now as a full-time job for coming up to 3 years since we lost Dad, and well, over 3 years, but 3 years for me doing this as a full-time job and just networking with people that work in a similar space to myself. And there's a guy who's been campaigning. He lost his son tragically, I think around 15 years ago. And he's only just had a law passed that defibrillators need to be in all schools from September of this year. So it's crazy to think that it took him that long when we've got this vital piece of equipment at our disposal. And I think back to your question, how we're getting on with it, I'm sort of finding I've met with MPs who are very supportive, very, you know, don't see how this can't be passed and how we won't get there. But I think it's just going to be to keep continuing to break down the walls and the barriers and get to the right people and get to the right sets of ears and eyes so that we can really drive and push this forward. Because every day that goes by, we're losing people to cardiac arrest. And look, cardiac arrest isn't preventable, but by giving people early defibrillation and early recognition that it is a cardiac arrest gives people the best possible chance of survival, which my dad didn't have. And it really, really doesn't just stop with that person who suffers the trauma. It's the ripple effect that it has on us as a family and on our friends by losing a loved one. And we really want to make a difference to make sure that we're preventing other families from having to go through what we've been through.
As I said from the outset, it's an inspiring story, and I think the work you're doing is truly excellent. I'm sure, Julian, if I can come on to you, welcome firstly to the pod. You're one of the first directors to join us on the Nest, brave enough to come on. A lifelong Leyton Orient fan, as I mentioned. I suppose over the last few years become a Bluebird supporter with us as well. As I said, as vice chairman, so an important and influential part. But going over to your memories then of Leyton Orient with the Edinburgh family, etc. What have your been your lasting memories, obviously, of Justin and the work that's going on?
I think for me, it's always difficult. And I met Justin once. I've known Charlie since Justin's passing by interviewing a few times and connecting him into people and what have you. But for me, it's it always get a bit of sort of a bit upset actually listening to Charlie, really, because I remember exactly where I was when the news broke, and I knew exactly where I wanted to be after I heard that news. It was one of the most surreal feelings. I sat at home. I said to my wife, I can't believe it. And the next thing I wanted to do is to be at the ground. And I was amazed by how many people went to the ground. People that never had the opportunity to talk with Justin, meet with Justin. We just knew him as our gaffer, the guy that got us promoted back into the Football League. There was just sort of an unbelievable sort of outpouring of grief. But then as time has progressed, we never forget. We speak about Justin like probably Charlie and his family speaks again, because we see things that happen at the club, go, oh, what would Justin would have done? Oh, this is very Justin-like. And that's weird as anything. I nearly swore then, Ryan. I apologise. I nearly got the first swear word in. But as a fan, it's the legacy that Justin's left for a very short time in the real scheme of things of Orient Football Club was going to be there forever. We've got our West Stands named after Justin, will always be there. His name's always talked in high regard amongst the fan community. The legacy of the JE3 Foundation is the thing that we as fans, Rob and I as investors and investors of the future for Haverfordwest, to take that legacy to the next level. If we can help raise a couple of quid for the JE Foundation, but more importantly, help spread the word of what's going on and what Charlie and the team are doing, and can make that small little bit of a sort of an influence and take it that next bit level, it's what we wanted to do. And I think from fairly early on, when Rob took over, we tried to sort of do something with JE3 Foundation. Just timings didn't quite work. Something like a pandemic came along and that sort of screwed things up. But one of our things for all of last year, Rob and I have said, we want to have the JE3 Foundation connected with Haverfordwest, and we want to continue with that for all the time we're at Haverfordwest and working with the club and for eternity, really, because I think for me it means a hell of a lot to us, but also it's a foundation and a charity that needs to be showcased. We need to get that law passed, because I think that is an unbelievable thing when you think about the lack of defibs in those places. Schools, that shocked me there, Charlie. I wasn't aware that the law of schools didn't have defibs in, but I think this is such an amazing cause, and for us just to do a little bit, and it is only a little bit, we are wanting to spread that news. But going back to Justin, what a hell of a guy, and he's really helped Orient on the journey they're on today, because if it wasn't for all that hard work, wasn't for all the great stuff he achieved with that football team, I think may be a little bit different down at Brisbane Road. And by the way, Ryan, it's East London, not North East London.
Yeah, it's, I must admit, I wasn't aware of the foundation, Charlie, until the start of the season, when the new home and away shirts with Haverfordwest County were rolled out in pre-season, and I could see this, really bright sort of coloured logo on the back of the shorts, and looking at it, I was thinking, well, I got to look at what's this all about? Is it a sponsor? And obviously, upon hearing what it was Rob who told me, the link up and the affiliation with Leyton Orient and yourselves, and it's inspiring. And I must admit, it's great to be a part of all the other side of the country, as far west pretty much as you can go. But where else in the UK are you currently working? Is it nationwide?
Yeah, nationwide. Just before we move on to, I obviously haven't had an opportunity yet, but it goes without saying, for us, we're absolutely honoured to be associated with the club. When Rob and Julian got in touch, and Julian was just like, it wasn't even him asking me, do I want to do it? It was like, we're doing it, and it was so, for me, really overwhelming, because to know that we're making that much of an impact on people is what we set out to do, right? That's what we as a family want to make, is a wave of difference. And to know Julian obviously spoke some very kind words there about my dad, but to know that he had that much of an impact on not just Leyton Orient fans, but football fans in the short period of time that he sort of worked with certain clubs and individuals, is what I'm really, really proud of. And, I'll be forever proud of my dad, but we're extremely proud as a charity to be on the back of the club shorts. And, Welsh clubs, Dad being a former Newport County manager, getting them back into the Football League after many years of exile was one of his, main biggest achievements in his footballing career. So it's, again, got a really nice connection. He's got a little bit of Wales in his heart as well from his time there, albeit the opposite side to you guys. But we're extremely grateful. And I just want to obviously express our deepest thanks for everything that the football club's doing for us.
No, appreciate that, and long may it continue, I suppose. We're, as a club, and a community involved in the club, an ever-increasing community, it has to be said as well, looking to support you. How can people get involved, Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely. We're across all sort of social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I haven't got as far as TikTok yet, but I think that could be quite a useful tool to get some of the education demonstrations and bits and pieces like that out on. So we will be looking to sort of utilise that tool as well. But yeah, at JE3 Foundation on Twitter and Instagram. And then our website is www.je3foundation.com. And there's ample information and keep up to date with all of our latest news, how we're getting on with Justin's Law. Any listeners, I encourage you, please head over to our website and sign our petition to help us reach the numbers that we need to get this petition heard. And as I mentioned earlier, every signature, it doesn't matter if you're in a family of 2 or a family of 10, get it signed, all of you. It really, really will make a difference, and it could potentially save one of your loved ones' lives as well. But yeah, we're doing fantastic work all over the country. I'm really looking forward. I've already had a discussion with Julian. I'm going to get down to one of your games at some point this season, and if I can have a conversation with a couple of fans, or anything that we can do in terms of a CPR workshop, if the club is in need of any assistance that JE3 can provide, we'd be absolutely delighted to do so.
Excellent. And I think that's more than possible. We can arrange that. And goes without saying, look forward to welcoming you down to the Oggy Bridge Meadow at a fixture soon. A couple of announcements then, just before we wrap up this episode. Bluebirds 1899 members, you should have all received an email this week from Rob, the chairman, with a bit of a club update, behind the scenes update, and some exclusive video content. Off the back of last week, we had Adam Raymond and Bobby Briers with us, who, obviously, as we're aware, Bobby took the throw-in, Adam had the assist, and Sir Thomas Bluebirds won in injury time in the Cup. So we're back to league fixtures this weekend. We head up the Cardiganshire coast to face Aberystwyth this Friday evening at Park Avenue for an 8 p.m. kickoff. Now that we're talking briefly football, Julian, I just want to pick your brains. I know you get to as many games down west as you can yourself from East London. What are your thoughts so far on the season as a director?
I think we've not been blessed with luck, and I think only in a football club or running a team, you've got to have a bit of luck. And I think poor old Tony sort of started the season, and we had a number of injuries. We're slowly getting those players back. And that's nice to see. We hired Tony in the summer because we knew he's the right guy for the job. He's got great credentials. He's well connected, a local guy. But I think we haven't seen the best of the team thus far. Disappointed, as you mentioned, the cup game. Disappointing to go out into the cup at any level. But it does give us the opportunity to sort of brush ourselves down and focus on the league. We're very ambitious as a board. We made it very clear we've got a 12-point plan, which is going to, there's a number of things in there, but one of the ones in there, which is the important one for the fans, is that we want to get the Bluebirds back into Europe. And that's the key driver for us. So we've invested well with our coaching staff, Tony and Waggy, fantastic gentlemen and decent football people as well. The team, I think the team is as strong as it has been since Robert and I have been involved. I'm really impressed, with some of the football we're playing. But you need a little bit of luck, and a little bit of luck will come, and I'm quite sure of it. And I think we'll go now into Christmas over the next 3 months and start to picking up points. If you look at the league, the Welsh Prem is there to be had. There's no outstanding, except for the obvious one. There's no real outstanding club that's sort of making headway. Everyone can beat everyone. One thing I do think we have, and I hope the fans are seeing that, is that we have the credentials to keep going forward. I think we've invested, as I said earlier, we invested well across the board. It's just about delivering, and that will definitely come. I think there's as an Orient fan, it's frustration is that Orient are doing extremely well this season, which is pleasing to see. But the weirdest thing is that Rob would say the same, as Rob and I are both, as I say, we're hard Orient fans as well. I must admit, I've probably been more to Haverfordwest or home and away than I've actually been to Leighton Orient this season, just due to work commitments and what have you. But I look for the Haverfordwest score first, and we are blessed. We have an opportunity to watch some of the games online via the service we have, and it's sort of watching those games. Frustrating as some of those are, where we're sort of not getting the rub of the green, but it's really, really good. I mean, we are in a good position for any fans listening to this. We're in a strong position. We know where we want to go. You've got the backing of the board to make this happen. As you can see around the ground, we've got new floodlights, with a bit of liquor paint and a bit of love into the bar area. We have some great match day experience with the new cafe, and things like that, and also the Nest down in the town itself. It's just so much going on, and what I want to take this opportunity whilst I can is just to thank all of those who make this work. Not the players, not the management, that they got our thanks anyway. It's everyone that gives up their Saturdays and midweek. It's the groundsman, it's the guys in doing the marketing bits, it's the guys doing the commercial bits, the guys and girls doing everything else around the club, and you have my absolute thanks and for doing so, because it makes this thing so special. And that's the reason why I'm sitting here, not just today on this to have a chat with you. It's why I'm invested my energy and time into the club. It's a special environment, and it gets into you, it gets in the blood, and it definitely has. And I want to make sure we can deliver for the fans. What they truly want is to get back into Europe and have those experiences once again.
Excellent. Appreciate that open and honesty there, Julian. And I think that bodes well for the future. It's exciting times ahead, both on and off the field. Both of you, I really appreciate your time. Charlie, in particular, your openness and your honesty about how the JE3 Foundation was born through sad circumstances, but really inspiring what you're doing to enhance even further your dad's legacy of a fantastic playing and management career, but now making such a vital impact across the world of football. Appreciate your time. Look forward to welcoming you down to the Oggy Bridge Meadow. There's a warm welcome in Pembrokeshire awaiting you. Julian, appreciate your time, and look forward to next week catching up with club legend Mickey Ellis, who'll be taking us a walk down memory lane, I'm sure. Thanks all, and we'll see you next week.